the Mario Polyclinic here in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala, has been shut down by the senior divisional officer of the Uri division. He shut down that health amenity today on the instructions of the Minister of Public Health, Dr. Manauda Malachi, who says the hospital has been carrying out some illegal activities. We will have details on that in this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Équinoxe Television. We'll also talk about the rise in COVID-19 figures in the Republic of Cameroon and out of the country. The World Health Organization says that the coronavirus may never go away. The director of the WHO's emergency health programs or health emergencies program has warned against predictions on when the pandemic will be over. Thanks, dear viewers, for joining us on this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television, live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. I am Bablet Jonathan. Cameroon now counts 2,910 confirmed cases of the coronavirus, 184 active cases, and the rate of recovery stands today at 60%. This information emerged from the consultation meeting of members of government in charge of the management and the fight against the coronavirus in the Republic of Cameroon. The meeting, chaired through video conference by the Prime Minister and Head of Government, Chief Dr. Joseph Diangoute. In the meantime, the Minister of Communication has frowned at Cameroonians who are not respecting the anti-COVID-19 measures of the government and the sanitation rules of the World Health Organization, saying that the fact that government decided to lift some of the restrictions against the COVID-19 is a sign that the pandemic has been defeated. He says this is not true, for the figures have continued increasing, and this was during a meeting that brought together the Ministers of Communication, Public Health and Finance, who spoke to the press yesterday in Yaoundé. And during that meeting, the Minister of Public Health, Dr. Manauda Malachi, said that the government will support his Lordship, or his Grace Samuel Kleda, as Bishop of Douala, in his herbal treatment for coronavirus. Innocent as has more.
The press conference grouping the Ministers of Finance, Public Health and Communication, René Emmanuel Sadzi, took the rostrum expressing regret over non-wearing of face masks, non-respect of social distancing rule in public places like bars, restaurants, nightclubs and so on by some Cameroonians who misinterpreted government's lift of barrier measures on entertainment sports to be end of the COVID-19 in the country.
With regard to leisure facilities, such as drinking spots and restaurants, for example, the government is calling on the responsibility of promoters, owners of restaurant managers, to help enforce the recommended actions and barrier measures. The same applies to all sectors of activity where the involvement of everyone is required, so that in the long run, the use of coercion remains the exception rather than the rule.
He does not embrace stigmatization of COVID-19 patients and those who have been cured.
Such an attitude, which is not far from ostracism, and which tends to cast reproach on citizens who, for the majority, ignore the conditions and the circumstances in which they contracted the virus, does not need to be given any room and must be denounced. It should be noted that COVID-19 is neither a shameful disease nor a curse.
Taking over, Minister of Public Health dwells on the collaborative support government intends according to Archbishop Samuel Kleda and his herbal remedy.
Nous avons proposé à Monseigneur un accompagnement et il a accepté.
We opted to work with him. He accepted. We will receive his product with good faith and first and foremost have it tested at the level of l'ANACOM just to be reassured the product is not toxic and move forward.
Pour nous rassurer que ce produit n'est pas toxique. Parce que comme on ne peut pas tout de suite donner la formule.
Minister of Finance, on his part, brings more precisions on economic measures the head of state has taken to accompany enterprises.
La projection que nous avons faite laisse comprendre que
the first projection we made makes us understand we have incurred losses as a result of the health crisis, about 800 billion francs CFA.
Projection que nous avons faite. Nous allons nous retrouver dans une situation où nous serions incapables.
We will find ourselves in a situation where we will be unable to pay salaries. We won't like to reach at this stage.
D'ici, j'espère, d'ici la fin de la semaine, nous présenterons à notre hiérarchie un projet de budget corrigé, qu'on appelle loi de finances rectificative ou collectif budgétaire.
These three members of government reiterate individual and collective mobilization behind government to eradicate the pandemic, stressing that the contribution of all is not optional but obligatory.
And I told you in the headlines that the Marie O Polyclinic here in Cameroon's economic capital Douala has been shut down by administrative authorities. The health amenities, or the doors of the health amenity, were closed today by the senior divisional officer of the Uri division on the instructions of Cameroon's Minister of Public Health, Dr. Manauda Malachi, who said that the health amenity has been carrying out some illegal activities and not respecting the laws of the land as far as the health sector is concerned. Recently, there was a battle between some relatives of a man who died of COVID-19 in that hospital and forces of law and order. The family members of the said individual rejected the fact that the hospital said the relative died of COVID-19 and forcefully took out the corpse from that hospital for burial. And after that incident, the Minister of Public Health, Dr. Manauda Malachi, decided to shut down the polyclinic. We'll be coming back to that story in a short while. Time for us to talk about visually impaired persons in Cameroon who are complaining that they have been neglected by government in its anti-COVID-19 strategy. Immaculate Fogwe has more.
Persons living with disabilities in Cameroon are amongst the social groups hardest hit by the coronavirus pandemic. A case in point is the Union of the Blind and Visually Impaired in Kongsamba in the Mungo division of the Littoral region of Cameroon. The outbreak of the coronavirus has caused many of them to live in deplorable conditions. To make matters worse, many of them have been abandoned as the sensitization messages aired on mainstream media do not take into consideration their impairment, as nothing has been transcribed on Braille.
Since they don't give that measure, say people no go.
Following the closure of schools, the center now plays the role of an orphanage for visually impaired. We sent some of the children back home. For those who are still left, we occupy them with educative activities and house chores. The educative program aired on a national station cannot be understood by us.
Nobody really understand.
It's not easy to feed them, especially now that they are at home. I have to always go to the farm and get the little I can. Right now we are doing nothing. Buying hand sanitizers and face masks is really an extra burden for us. The social distancing role is equally affecting the lives of these disabled, as many of them depend on the support of guides who have no disabilities. The vulnerable set of individuals are in need of material and financial assistance that will sustain them throughout the COVID-19 period.
The government of the Republic of Cameroon is considering the possibility of school resumption June 1, 2020, but this is only going to be for class 6 and Kumoin the pupils in the French and subsystems of education at the primary level, and of course there will be no sporting activities, among other measures that have been taken to prevent the spread of coronavirus in the schools. At the secondary level, schools will also resume on the 1st of June 2020, depending on the evolution of the coronavirus pandemic in the Republic of Cameroon, and measures have equally been taken at the level of the secondary school, as announced by the Minister of Secondary Education, Professor Pauline Naluva Lyonga. The measures will be taken, notably including the number of students per classrooms, not more than 50, among other measures that have been taken for effective school resumption, void of the risk of coronavirus. At the university level, schools will also resume depending on the evolution of the pandemic on the 1st of June 2020. Measures have equally been taken at that level to ensure that school resumption does not become a risk factor that will promote the spread of coronavirus. For example, a system of rotation and splitting of courses will be put in place or implemented in universities and other higher institutions of learning, as announced by the Minister of Higher Education, Professor Jacques Fame Ndongo, and some modifications have been brought to the academic calendar as far as the current school year is concerned. Official examinations have been scheduled for June to July 2020, and holidays will run from August to September 2020. Back to school 2020-2021 has been scheduled for the 5th of October 2020 for nursery, primary, and secondary, as well as higher institutions of learning. All of these depending on the evolution of the coronavirus pandemic. In the meantime, e-learning is effective in the University of Buea, and Southwest correspondent Derek Jato was there to see how lectures are delivered online. His report.
We are going to be looking at the course DED 407, Introduction to Research and Statistical Methods in Education.
Lectures ongoing at the Faculty of Education here in the University of Buea.
Also, gender identification or cultural roles begin to emerge here.
The e-learning advancement has transformed this laboratory into a digital center.
I said morals is right conduct, not only in our immediate social relationships.
Chief Professor Agbo Bechem, Dean of the Faculty of Education, explains how this new learning and teaching process has been made easy.
This time there is a recording studio, so we have Google Classroom that we are using to reach our students. Still there is space in the Google Classroom where the students can react and send their worries, and the teachers can get back to them to clarify them on their worries and doubts. So actually in the Faculty of Education in the University of Buea, classes are effectively going on during the COVID-19 crisis.
Dr. Yaro Lovelin, the coordinator, says the distance education in the University of Buea has speedily seen the light of day.
So the courses have been designed in such a way that there is some kind of interactiveness in it, because the teachers go in assuming that these are the questions that the students are, because you as a teacher, you must know who your learner is, and so the kind of lessons that they prepare, they try to make it a little bit interactive. I'm using code because they try to ask questions and sit in the position of the student.
With advanced e-learning equipment planted here, the authorities of UB says this form of education will still be encouraged even after COVID-19.
Universities and other higher institutions of learning will resume school for the 2020-2021 academic year on the 15th of October 2021. Of course, that is on the 15th of October 2020. Now we go out of the country to talk about the Executive Director of the World Health Organization's Health Emergencies Program, who says that the coronavirus may not go away and people will have to learn to live with it, as it is the case with HIV. Irish former trauma surgeon and epidemiologist specializing in infectious diseases, Dr. Michael Ryan, warns against predictions on when the coronavirus will come to an end, or the pandemic will come to an end. And the leader of the international COVID-19 containment and treatment team was speaking during yesterday's briefing. Take a listen.
There's a long way to go before there's going to be any bells unrung in this response. So I think we need to be clear about that. Countries, as you've seen, are trying to find a path out and a path towards a new normal, as many people have put it, and we're going to be on that pathway for a long time. And as we've seen in some countries, even a small recurrence of disease can cause the need for a serious response in terms of the public health response. I think it's important to put this on the table. This virus may become just another endemic virus in our communities, and this virus may never go away.
The director of the World Health Organization's Health Emergencies Program, Dr. Michael Ryan, speaking there. And joining us from the United States of America is Dr. Ivor Dieter, public health and epidemiology expert, assistant professor of medicine at the University of Minnesota Medical School. Doctor, you're welcome. Doctor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Babila, for inviting.
Dr. Ivor Dieter joining us there from the United States of America. Doctor, the World Health Organization's Executive Director for the Health Emergencies Program of the institution says that the coronavirus may never come to an end. How can we understand this? What should we understand in this?
Yeah, Mr. Babylon, I am not surprised by this message coming from the WHO. Viruses are not always go as well as we would have liked them to go. We know how much we worked very hard to get a vaccine for HIV, but to this date, we do not yet have a vaccine. So I am not surprised from HIV. Mr. Babila, COVID-19 is a new disease. It's a pandemic that we have never faced before. So all of us, every country, every health specialist is learning along as we discover more and more new information about this virus. No one is hope. There's thought this is and give of coronavirus like the flu, where we succeeded at vaccine. There is a lot of optimism that we may have a vaccine for the coronavirus. But remember, even the flu vaccine, the virus mutates, and each and every year, the vaccine has to be added into the. If we had a vaccine, it would really require a lot of work for us to be able to control coronavirus pandemic. Remember the term nationalism around the, for example, has said if they were to come up with a vaccine, that vaccine will first need to be given to Americans. So what happens to us in Africa? So this raises a lot of questions as to what we back home, for example in Cameroon, need to be doing to addiction our year. We know that today in the world there are about 300,000 deaths, about 4.3 million billion people are affected, and the world has about 7 billion people. And we know how these things go. If it's, I guarantee you, unless the Western world has had enough for its people, we in Cameroon may never see that vaccine. So it is very important that we focus on the measures that help. This virus is not going away anytime. We have all seen the impact of uplifting some of the measures that we had in Cameroon that were put in place by the government. We've seen our brothers and sisters go about their longer as if we have found a solution. We have not found a solution. The journey is going to be a long one. Even when this virus is controlled, we're going to have long-term health impacts. For example, we're already seeing a lot of mental health related issues. Taking this message home to Cameroon, we have watched videos lately of how burials are being conducted. We as Cameroonians know that a burial is a very sacred event. We know how much we are attached to that. So for family members to watch their loved ones ripped away from their hands and buried in the way we are currently doing, I think we can find a balance. We can find a way in which we can strike a balance between burying these people safely and making sure that family members do not live with this sequelae or post-pandemic emotional distress, given how their loved one were buried.
All right, doctor. So
economic impact.
So it's a very risky thing to be predicting when the pandemic will end. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it's very risky. No one in the world can tell when this pandemic will be over. It may take the next 1 year, it may take 2 years, and perhaps it may never come to an end. There has been hope on the vaccine. We all hope we get one. But even when we get it, it will take a long time for this vaccine to reach all corners of the world. So my message is simple.
Dr. Ivo Dita. Right, Dr. Ivo Dita, public health and epidemiology expert, assistant professor of medicine at the University of Minnesota Medical School, United States of America. Thanks for joining us. On to something else now. We're going to talk about insecurity, which is on the rise in many parts of Cameroon. And a case in point in this newscast is Buda in the west region of the country, where gendarme officers recently arrested some alleged bandits who had been terrorizing inhabitants of that part of the country. Manjikan Gabriel has more.
Quarters in Buda, west region of Cameroon. Inhabitants of the neighborhood are delighted after 2 alleged bandits were caught by elements of the gendarmerie. A sheet of zinc, mattress, a pair of shoes, a gas cylinder, a CPU, alongside a desktop and a television set were some of the items seen in the residence of these 2 alleged bandits.
On ne peut plus vivre en paix. On est là, on fuit Corona. On va encore fuir les bandits, c'est devenu quoi?
Upon their arrest, the elements of the gendarmerie in Buda, headed by Adjutant Lashlele Sebastien, bundled the 2 on their pickup alongside the stolen items. Getting into the head office in Buda, the crowd was uncontrollable as they all were happy to have been relieved.
Il a vraiment tapé la machette sur ma tête. Il dit que vous voulez quoi, je vous donne.
A victim told us she was hit with a machete on the head before they made away with her television set alongside other electronics. The leader of the gang refuted all allegations levied on him, saying he is innocent and that he was being beaten for no reason. Meanwhile, another alleged gang member accepted the accusations and says if given a phone, he will call the other members of his team. The items were later presented to the population, and the fate of the alleged bandits now lies within the justice system in Buda.
The whereabouts of detained Cameroonian journalist Samuel Wazizi, journalist of CMTV in the southwest region of Chieftown Buea, remains unknown more than 9 months after his arrest. The lawyers submitted a request for habeas corpus for a second time today at the Fako High Court in the southwest regional Chieftown Buea. The first submission was dismissed by the court on grounds that the lawyers quoted the wrong laws, and today the lawyers of Samuel Wazizi submitted a second appeal for habeas corpus. Until today, his whereabouts or what's happening to him or his situation remains unknown to the general public. He has been detained for more than 9 months. Some journalists and leaders of journalist associations were present at the Fako High Court today, and we talked to the lawyer, the lead defense counsel in the case of Samuel Wazizi, Barrister Emmanuel Nkia, and this is what he told Derek Jato in Buea. Take a listen.
Counsel on the case concerning Samuel Wazizi, the matter before today, what has been the outcome?
First military battalion to produce the defendant, that is the applicant, the victim, or to give reasons why his detentions are reasonable, to produce either documents that justify his detention or to produce him in person. But when we appeared in court today, it would appear that the respondents are not being served with a court order. And we drew the court's attention to that. But we were mindful to proceed. We decided to proceed with the hearing of the application, given that it had been, there have been some dilatory tactics from the respondents. So we decided to proceed with the application as it is. And we moved the court on the basis of our application, which as at now stands uncontroverted. The evidence that we had given to court, the affidavit evidence, has not been challenged by anybody whatsoever. And when we moved the court, the legal department replied. In the course of their reply, we got to know, we became aware that the legal department had filed submissions yesterday. Those submissions were not served on us. Our attention was not drawn to it. And after we discovered that during the session, during the proceedings, we made an objection to the court to stop the proceedings and oblige us with a copy of the submissions of the legal department. That was done. We were served with a copy of the submissions. And in going through it, it requires that we should also take our time to give a detailed response to what they are alleging. Because for once, I could see very vividly, they are alleging that we have failed to produce the warrants, either the arrest warrant or the detention warrant for what.
Samuel Wazizi is accused of having links with separatist fighters in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, accusations which he rejected when some journalists went to visit him in the first few days of his arrest in the town of Buea. And Derek Jato also talked to some leaders of journalist associations in the Republic of Cameroon. Abba Isidore is the president of the Cameroon English-speaking Journalists Association Buea chapter, and His Majesty Chief Woni Kemanyang Paul is the president of the Cameroon branch of the Commonwealth Journalists Association. They are all decrying what is qualified as an attack on press freedom and human rights in Cameroon.
Good in the Anglophone crisis, because we are caught between the military and the civilian population we serve. When you speak something they think is not favorable to them, when you give the facts they think that you're supporting the military. Or when you speak something that is very correct, they think that you're supporting the government. So we are living in fear, but we have decided that we are not going to give up, because as journalists it is our role, it is our responsibility to give people the information, not minding who the information is favorable to or upset. But we have decided to dedicate ourselves to carry out our role based on our ethics and deontology. We are not going to sacrifice this because we are threatened by the military. We are not going to compromise our dignity and all we've got to satisfy a particular party. What we are saying is that we don't need people to be harassing us, whether they are military or they are civilians. They should allow us to do our job, and we are going to do our job professionally without fear or favor.
Well, Samuel Wazizi has been in detention for close to 10 months. Detained incommunicado on allegations which are still to be proven. When we got the news about his arrest, we made a few interventions to see whether he could be brought before a court of law, or they could allow us to see him, or he could be let go and nobody listened to us. 10 months after, the matter is before the court. I understand the habeas corpus has been dismissed on a number of occasions, and the Commonwealth Journalists Association, which I represent in Cameroon, and the Vice President for Africa have been directed to get involved in this matter. And I feel the pains of a journalist having to suffer without committing a crime. The law says when you arrest, you have to produce within 48 hours. That is the law. To have kept Samuel Wazizi for 10 months with nobody, no family member, no lawyer, no journalist having access to him is an abomination.
Samuel Wazizi has been in incommunicado detention for over 10 months today since he was arrested, and national and international journalism associations have been calling for his immediate and unconditional release, to no avail. Coming up next, Talking Point. Senator Barrister Henry Kemende is joining us from Cameroon's political capital, Yaoundé. You're welcome, Mr. Senator.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Jonathan. I am joining you all the way in the northwest region, Bamenda, provincial headquarters.
All right, thank you for joining us from Bamenda. And you're a legal mind, and I want you to react on this situation concerning a journalist who has been detained for over 10 months incommunicado. Samuel Wazizi of CMTV in Boya has been in detention now for 10 months. Nobody knows what's happening to him or his whereabouts.
In fact, Mr. Babila Jonathan, it's an unfortunate situation. It is one of those unfortunate situations that we live in our country today, and that is actually what is the effect that the common law system is suffering in the hands of the civil law jurisdiction that is actually iterating into what used to be common law, because the burden is on the prosecution, on the person accusing whosoever to prove the person's guilt. It is not on that to prove it. So the issue, arresting somebody and putting him under, jail term before he ever convicted, it is actually unwarranted. It is unlawful. It is even against the constitution of our country, and even against the prosecution code. The constitution is very clear that it is the duty of a court of law to pronounce somebody guilty. But when you detain somebody, even for 1 month, without actually finding any reason to detain him, without actually any judgment, that is wrong. It is just like giving a judgment before the real judgment that is supposed to come from the court. Because you, the person who is detaining him, but detaining him on what grounds? Have you found him guilty? Is the accusation equal to a judgment? That is what we are living, and we are living day in, day out, and year in, year out. People are languishing on the game for years without trial, and we consider it normal. That is actually the affair of post-law, which used to be.
Barrister Kemende, what can possibly explain this situation in which Samuel Wazizi finds himself today being detained for several months incommunicado? What can possibly explain this? What can be the reason why they are keeping him incommunicado? Nobody knows what is happening to him. Senator Kemendi, member of Cameroon's Upper House of Parliament and member of the Social Democratic Front SDF political party, legal mind, member of the Cameroon Bar Association, joining us there from the Northwest Regional Chieftown, Bamenda, and he was reacting there on the incommunicado detention of Samuel Wazizi, journalist of CMTV. And Senator, I was asking you, what can possibly explain this situation in which Samuel Wazizi finds himself today? What can be the reason for which they are keeping him incommunicado for over 9 months? And what can be happening behind the bars?
In fact, you see, it is hard for any civilized community to imagine. When you imagine that this interview or Equinoxe is listened to by many persons around the world, many people in different civilized countries where there's a rule of law, you ask yourself whether we are not exposing ourselves to ridicule as far as the international community is concerned. It is absurd here that somebody is kept behind bars for as long as 8 good months without trial. It is actually it's an abuse of our constitution, an abuse of the criminal procedure code, an abuse of even the criminal issues as a matter of fact. Because you can't imagine you have accused somebody. You are a judge and a party in your own case, because you, the person who is accusing the journalist for having committed an offense, you are a party because you have an interest. You think that he has committed an offense, but then on his own part, he doesn't think that he has committed an offense. Why not take the matter before a court of law that will pronounce the accused person innocent or guilty? How could you be judge and party in your own case? The person who is detaining that the journalist, it was easy, is hereby called upon, even if we cannot get, because we know that we violate court decisions. That person is called to release that journalist forthwith. That it is illegal. That detention is illegal, and if the prosecution is not ready to prosecute any other detainee, they should release those detainees forthwith. That it is an insult, and I hate to belong to a country where the laws are violated on a daily basis without anybody calling the party who is violating the laws to order. It is actually absurd. Let that person keeping Wazizi, release him forthwith, in order that some of us can actually be proud to belong to a country called a country state of law. That is actually, I'm really touched, because to imagine that a journalist, for whatever reason, who is supposed to communicate, he has people who follow him up, and he has been doing his job, he's a trained journalist. You have not proven him guilty, and you are keeping him for all this length of time, like any other detained person who has not been tried. In fact, there should be a mandatory provision as far as execution is concerned, because we have the laws that give a time limit within which you can detain somebody without trial. And if you have to keep that person, you have to keep him or her under some express provisions of the law and under certain conditions. So if they have not proven those conditions now which they are keeping Wazizi, they should release him. And any other person who is undergoing trial, detention without trial. This is actually, it's absurd that we make laws every day, and the people who are called upon to execute, they flout the laws on daily in which he lives. In fact, with regard to that situation, I don't know what African countries really want. I don't know whether they think that without the white man, without colonization, without slave trade and colonization and all the new colonization, they cannot live on their own. I don't know whether the leaders think that left on our own, we will not survive as a people. Before colonization, I think we were surviving, even if some people were to qualify that as living under primitive age. But I think we were surviving as a people, and we're meeting up our challenges. People, what I've discovered is that the people we have now in government, they enjoy putting pictures like the pictures of Nkrumah, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Nelson Mandela, Thomas Sankara. They just enjoy framing those pictures and putting in their various offices just to be admiring. Meanwhile, those people, the Kwame Nkrumahs, the Martin Luther Kings, they all did what they did for us to emulate and for us to emerge from what they were telling us. For us to have just completely put aside what they said or shave aside whatever principle they founded and just be concerned enough to frame their pictures and put in their offices to show how better Nelson Mandelas we are, and how better Kumas we are, how better Patrice Lumumbas we are, instead of doing what they had preached, what they stood for. Instead of continuing from where they ended, we prefer to frame their pictures and put in our offices for admiration. I think it is high time that the African takes his destiny, takes his destiny into his hands. And when I say the African, I don't mean individual Africans, because as individual Africans, we can't do much. I'm talking here, but if I don't have the power to put in place what I'm saying, there is no way by which I can make any stride forward. So what I'm saying, when I mean the African, I mean the African governments. They should stop this beggarly attitude of begging for funds all the time, going cap in hand begging. Now that we find ourselves in the coronavirus era, in fact, the Americans have suffered more deaths than us. The Spanish, the European countries, Chinese, they have suffered more deaths. The casualties in all these countries have been more than us. We are all, we can say in the health sector, we are all leprosy patients. How could you go asking another leprosy patient to help you out of their leprosy? Meanwhile, he himself is not able to cure, to treat himself. So we all know that this coronavirus has
Senator Kemende, when you look at the health systems in African countries today, and you look at the financial strength of the different African countries, you look at the economic strength of the different African countries, is it possible for them to function today, to completely abandon aid, asking for help left and right, to solve their problems themselves?
How can you have milk and honey flowing in your various countries and you are asking for help? What we need is a strong policy that could actually combat neo-colonialism. Because we are still, even though we have been given independence in quotes, we are still under colonization. And even if you look at certain countries, we are even worse off than when we were under colonization. You can imagine that you have gold at your backyard. You have petroleum underground. You have all the minerals, diamond. Everything comes from Africa, timber. But then those things leave Africa and they do refine it for us. They do add value to it and then bring it back to us and they sell it at exorbitant prices. What have we not got? Can we not sit down and make a policy with regard to our raw materials? Our raw materials are capable of this. This is saying that Africa is the oxygen of the world and it will remain oxygen of the world for a very long time to come. It is just a matter of the policy making by the various governments we have in power. And let it be noted that the governments we have in power, they are mostly those governments to whom the colonial master handed over power. And they are not yet changed their mind. They have not yet changed their mind from the colonial mindset. They are serving their nationals, they are serving their countrymen as if they are still serving the white man, which is not normal. It is high time that we serve Cameroonians. Cameroonian government should serve Cameroonians, Nigerian government should serve Nigerians, and all the other African countries should serve their nationals. Because this coronavirus has come to teach us a lesson. We cannot now go for medical treatment into Europe. And I wish the coronavirus or other ailments were to attack those government officials now. They will discover that at their backyard, they never developed a health sector that could take care of their own personal health situation. So now there's no way to go to Europe again. So I think this coronavirus era teaches us a lesson to construct good hospitals. Do things that you see Europeans do in order that you can stay back home and develop your own country land. We were not meant, the good Lord did not create us to depend on anybody. They created us in a self-contained manner. But the thing is, we lack good governance. We are still controlled by the colonial master. I don't know what it takes for us to come out of that mindset.
Paul Foucault says that the African countries have to seize the opportunity of the coronavirus pandemic to take back and consolidate their independence. Senator, we are wrapping up. Let's take a snappy look at the socio-political and security climate in Anglophone Cameroon today. You are in the Northwest region. What's the situation there?
Well, we have a situation. You just looking back at what happened in Manfe, you discover that we clamor for peace when there is actually nothing that's been done virtually. If we were to say dialogue that we had recently, that's last year, is anything to go by, we wouldn't have been having what we are having now. People are killed, shot and killed on a daily basis. A mayor, the shooting and killing of a mayor is a very wrong, it's a very bad signal to some people who thought that it was time for reconstruction and that peace has returned and that it's time for reconstruction. It is a warning signal that you cannot reconstruct when war is still going on. It is not, that is not how things are done. I don't know why we think that we want to invent the wheel in Cameroon. If there is no way, the situation is still stormy. The situation is still, the violence is still ongoing. The refugees have not yet returned. People are still in the bushes. There is still insecurity reigning in our regions, and we are talking about reconstruction. What is happening now is that we need to build peace, and peace is preceded by dialogue. The dialogue that took place, I want to say without mincing.
Senator Kemendi, member of Cameroon's Upper House of Parliament and a legal mind, member of the Cameroon Bar Association, joining us from the Northwest Regional Chief Town, Bamenda. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. Goodbye.